Hello and greetings, it's Lee. There we go. No editing, just natural. So, this video is about death and the types of death and a constant reality and the reminder for the reality that we are always undergoing different types of death until we have what we could call eternal life, or the full enlightenment, or we can use many terms, but death and being a phoenix until an ultimate level of being, which is only a full merging back with the divine source, which takes a very long time to do that. So, as you know, as you're watching the video, if you're in a mortal body, or if you're a spirit watching the video beside somebody somehow, hey, you never know. Well, the fact is, you will continue to have a death in one shape, way, or form. The physical body you see here is only around for a short time. Your own body is also on a clock, if you will. Now, we all know this, but we don't bring it to the forefront of our minds often enough, because keeping death as an accepted sacred rite or a necessary matter, and having an appreciation and a respect and understanding as to the manifold reasons of why, then it keeps us in a state of humility, sanity, keeps us in a proper perspective, because a lot of people live their life not even thinking much about it, and the reaper could come in any moment. So one of the greatest things for a spiritual person, for a mystic, for a shaman, for a priest, whatever the case may be, person in general, don't have to have a title for it, is if you're on the spiritual path, which is the sacred road to take. In fact, a person that lives a life with paying no attention to the promotion and the growth of their spirit soul is indeed, I don't want to say wasting your life, because maybe that's what they need to do for their growth, but at the same time, it's like being the living dead. People talk about zombies and things. Well, the fact is, if you're in a human body, it's kind of like you're living a death trap, so to speak. To put it in an awkward manner, you're living through a mortal experience. So, people have been doing this throughout the universe for eternity, quite literally. And many people on the earth have been living many lifetimes, human lifetimes, here for a long time. We can speak about different life forms and pasts and futures also. But the fact is, we have many deaths, and we have many deaths even during our incarnation as the human person that you are. So, you have a death to yourself. If someone has a certain level of pride, they can have a death to their pride and be more humble. If someone has an aggressive manner, they can have a death to that and learn to be more gentle. Many things that you could think of that you've already had. In fact, you and I both have had many deaths, even in a short duration of a human lifetime. So, that being necessary, because unless we are able to die to ourselves many times over, then the egos that we cling to so ferociously linger too long and can turn someone into a monster or into being quite insane. Another point I wish to raise, when we hear about people who are who don't believe in an afterlife and this and that, this is a person that did not spend enough time with the being, and looked at many, and was spending too many times on external things in many cases. This is also someone that does not want to look at their past, who and what they were perhaps before an incarnation, what they might be afterwards, what they might have to face nakedly, as it were, when exhaled and coming back out of the body. There are many tips and tricks people say about how to become a better person, and meditations at night and going backward in your thoughts and your events that you did in the day, and many types of cute little tricks and things, some of which can be very effective, and there's no right and wrong. Whatever actually works for an individual is a good thing to do. But the best thing of all that I found to do is to say, apart from all these meditations, just ask a simple question. Would I like myself, or would I be proud of myself? Have I thought? Do I feel that I grew enough? Was I reasonable enough? At the moment, if I die any time, would I like myself? Would I be okay amongst spirits and demigods, all sorts of things? Never even mind if they have to judge us or not. The point being is, for me, myself, and I, and ask yourself that question for you: how do you sit with yourself? How will you sit with yourself when you die? And you will, and I will. So that's something to think about. The importance of being a phoenix, therefore, and being someone that always has, the smartest thing of spirituality is to always have a hope for the future, and to try to bring that future into the now as much as possible. Try and bridge the gap as much as possible. We can't find complete, absolute contentment necessarily in a human body, but some said that they did or almost did. Maybe the Buddha was an example of that, I don't know. But the thing is, we are trying very hard, whether we like it or not, or whether we are consciously aware of it or not, we are indeed evolving as spiritual beings, as life beings, as the being, spread out and scattered and extended, having these experiences for the growth process, for the experience of learn and relearn. So these are the purposes, and the manifold layers of death need to be not shunned but embraced. People talk about doing your own shadow work, or purging your own inner demons. These are also deaths. You see, you take a very malicious spirit who's crazy and violent, put it in a human body, it will stay that way for a little bit, but less proud, less surging of it, and over a period of time, after many lifetimes, that vicious soul has turned slowly but surely gentle and relaxed. So becoming mortal, becoming incarnate into a thick, dense body, is a way of weaning and layering and letting go of things and going for a future that is much better. So even the worst of the worst soul we can think of can turn indeed into a saint, and that's the very purpose. So it is also necessary for us to not be too sad also. If you have a loved one that has recently died, or is about to, or something like that, people die every day, people are reborn every day. So the thing is not to be too sad, because obviously you'll miss someone. Yes, you'll miss the person, you'll miss the closeness, the friendship. I'm not saying that is to be discarded or not included, but the point is also to have the celebration, because that life lesson from however many years, sometimes very short, sometimes very long, in human terms at least, that lesson is over. So there's one little level up, one grade up. Sometimes people may seem to fail the grade. Well, you can return and continue. I think failing twice the exact same lesson doesn't happen very often. So that's just to remind ourselves, because none of us are perfect, none of us have all the answers, and at the same time, when we look at very basic things, very common sense things, very basic facts, life and death and whatnot, then even the person that believes in such things, or has had experiences with other things, or the person that has very little experience with certain things, we can agree upon the fact of there is a death. And the death is a growth. The death is actually the blessing, because that part of you, that certain parts and pieces of your ego self has passed. For example, I will only be this fool one time. This ego with its name and a male body and this and that and this country and this exact specifics once. Same for you. You will only be the lady or the gentleman that you are right now one time. You'll never be able to repeat exactly that lifetime. So it's also nice to celebrate life. Death and life are actually one thing, and they're intermingled. And the Buddha had mentioned, it's not about, it belongs to Buddha, and quoting scripture or something, but the fact is, it ends up becoming common sense, is that when it doesn't make a difference to you whether you're in a body or out of a body or whichever place, then you have put life and death into one and understood the perfection, or understanding the yin yang, or being the divinity, the divine mind, the divine heart, regardless of exterior circumstances, right? Because we always go back to being and thing. So we have being, the moods of operation that we do and what we are in the deepest sense, and then we have all the external things that we're dealing with all the time. And when we are at peace within, then we become at peace without. But multiple layers of death and new life until we're able to do that. Now, it's not always easy to think about it when it's not around us, it's not present. If no one around us has died recently, or if nothing's happening to us, then we don't think about it too much. But eventually there comes a knocking on the door. Your time as that person that you are is up. So what I'm suggesting and saying is for us to remind ourselves to be like a phoenix, and to always have that humility and that hope, that sacred grace, to say, yes, this part of me must die so that the new part may grow. Let that part decrease so this better part that's trying to emerge may increase. So we're going through multiple layers. It's like the path is only one. You either left the divinity to explore, and whatever time that takes, and then come back. So some are going and some are coming. That's the eternity dance. Everywhere, anywhere in the universe. And everything that exists has its meaning, its purpose. Even the darkness of the darkness must exist to be the counterbalance of the divine perfection, the absence of what it is not, in order to leave so as to return. So death, no matter what kind of deaths we're having, multiple levels of it, in a body, out of a body, it's for the sole purpose of remembering and coming back to the divine life. And until we try to make an effort to go back to the divine, eternal life, then we are going to keep dying in one shape, way, or form. In ourselves, unto ourselves, amongst others, fighting wars, and wars and things that are happening externally is because of the death that is inside people. The sacred torch within has been puffed out, or is flickering weakly, and is causing all these problems. But when the torch of life, as it were, is strong in us, then we're leaving destruction and suicidal ways, for a manner of speaking, and coming back into life. The people who run the planet, the dark side of that which exists for that part of it, is basically a death cult. Because being proud and having achievements in a material sense, in a temporary nature, is pretty childish, and it's a worship of death, if you really think about it. Yet it's something that the individuals needed to do, and you and I it's somewhere in our history perhaps are no different, and certainly we're not any better. This is what also brought Siddhartha the Buddha the great serenity, for having recall of all of his past lives, and then saying, I've been the worst person in the world, and I've been the saint. Now I understand that I am indeed equal to all things, and I'm better than no one. And because of that, I'm supremely content. I'm not trying to compete or argue with anybody or prove anything to anybody anymore. I just want to mention this quote, as I had read it in a book recently, and it had said, think about this. A person like the Buddha, like the Christ, in service to others, and not in service to self whatsoever at all, but existing to serve others, and because of that, had the supreme peace mentally and in the heart. And the person that only serves the self and disregards everybody else is always miserable. Their laughter is false and forced and weak because it is fake. The malice, the hatred, the insecurity, the pride, these are levels of death that if they mature, they can really whack someone out. There's some kook nuts on this planet, in figures in history. not that maybe you and I haven't been them too at some point, way back, or who knows what. I'm just allowing for possibilities. What I'm saying is, to have your death matured, to have your self-destructive nature, because to hurt others is to hurt yourself. And that really comes to be a reality when the boomerang comes full circle, and it always does and always will. Because the universe works precisely in balance, in rebalancing itself constantly. So, when we are looking at life and holding life, sort of my cat is playing in the background there. When we are holding on to life and looking forward to life, I will be a better self, and I can return to that eternity, that divine level of being, and being humble with your faults and deaths, and say, okay, well, that part of me is gone now. I'll let go of that now. I'm a little less proud. I'm a little less vicious. I'm a little less self-pitying. I'm a little less whatever the case may be. We all have our own. If we ask ourselves truthfully, we all have our own self-destructive nature or tidbits of essences that we do to ourselves. But that's a false ego that does that. When our mind and heart is not connected properly, then we are doing these things. Because we're looking for help and also looking for approval from outside things. But we have to remember to go back here, because before anything else or anywhere else, call it, if you want to call it God or the divine spark of all things, it's in here. It's inside. You are it. You are it. Extend it out. So, looking inside and saying, when I am better in here, then my life gets better out there. And sometimes unknowingly, we do things in the outer world, and then it makes ourselves feel happy. But as long as we are making sure that our happiness is stable and spiritual, therefore it will be lasting. So we can keep improving, going up the ladder. A lot of people don't like pyramid and stuff because there's negative connotations with false Illuminatis. But there are real Illuminatis too. Anyone can be one. You don't have to be part of a cult or a group or anything like that. You are if you are. The pyramid just simply goes to show of increasing and getting bigger and better in yourself, so that finally it's not broad and wide, it becomes the narrow path, and then we each have the enlightenment. We each be the Buddha, we each become the Christ. That takes a lot of time. Thankfully there are those before us who are trying to be showing the way, and whatever level of awareness we're at, we try to pass on what we have, limited or graceful, whatever the case, different layers. But the acceptance of death leads towards the new life. I might have said this in another video or not, but the Druids of the past and other pagan societies were very happy and proud when one of their members died, because rather than, you can mourn and cry for your family member, your loved one, but the fact also is celebrate that soul, celebrate his or her life, whatever they were, whatever they did, and now they're out of that incarnation, and now they're on to a new thing. They may be reborn here, they may stay in the sky for a while, they can, whatever the case, but they're free from that, so it's celebrated also. So to respect death is to respect life. There are some very nasty egos and there are levels of being which are potentially available to all of us. Doesn't mean we will all do it, but there are levels of being potentially available to individual soul sparks, and some people have taken up the mantle of insanity and extreme violence. But still to the day, some persons in here and there that have very little regard for life at all. They like to respect their own life, or so they think, but you cannot respect your own life fully if you disregard someone else's. We have to be able to see with a clear, equal vision everybody we encounter. A real mirror, and we are indeed a mirror, because we have the same life essence inside of us. That's the truth. So, the respecting of death is the respecting of life. The respecting of life is also the respecting of death. The necessary components, the counterbalances to make and lead to our own perfection of enlightenment, step by precious step. So it's not to be afraid or ashamed of death. See, I have a video that I made a couple years ago, because I myself had a near-death experience, and it was very frightening, and it was very real. Death is very real. Oh, it's just a fantasy, it's not going to happen to me. Well, yeah, it will. So I had this happen to me in my mid-20s, about 10 or so years ago, and when I was there believing indeed, okay, I'm dying, I was very scared. I had tears just saying, well, this is embarrassing, I die so young. Like I felt so ashamed of myself, I felt so silly. It was frightening, and I felt ashamed of myself or something. I don't know what it, I could make a long dialogue about it, but the fact is, when I came to the point where I felt I was dying and I was coming out of my body, that's when I felt the two angelic soothing hands soothe me right here, and just the touch for about 5 seconds or so said, no, your time's not now, relax. And I was soothed head to toe, and I was lying on my back, and then I said, if I died right now, I'm at extreme peace. I had a serene smile of perfect, pristine acceptance on my face, and I was just, I could die right now, it wouldn't bother me at all. But I didn't, and I am here for a few more years. The point is, many people have had that. That's also a shamanic or a mystical rite of passage, is to have a near-death experience, because it lets you break through the veil so that you know. Because you have a faith-based belief in a religion or something like that, and I'm not knocking religions, some are good, some are bad, some have been misused, yes, it's true. But what we can argue about all that all the live long day. But the fact is, when you have an experience and then you know something rather than have a belief for it, then and only then perhaps do you have the supreme piece of something. Now, we're all fools. We all pretend we know things, or we all have our defensive dignities and all that stuff. But the fact is, none of us is perfect, and we will keep dying until we become perfect. But guess what? We chose that. We accepted to undergo this whole thing when we first left the source. I'm going out for a billion-year trip. When I come back, I'll be perfect again, and I'll stay in perfection for a while. But the fact is, all that is happening to us, whether we remember it or not, I swear to you that it is the truth of truths, if you will remember it for yourself like I have for myself, is we accepted everything. We accepted the circumstances and the gulfs and the sectors and things of that which would happen to us in order for us to have the necessary experiences, to appreciate and reappreciate life and death, and then come back to the great divinity source, and then say, I am, I also am, and I am now perfection. That's not... It's like the saying, you're not God until you're God. So not some people might understand what I mean by that. So we're out having these mini lives and mini deaths, but there only is one eternity inside of us. Life is it. People say, you only live once, YOLO. I hear the kids with their slang and all that. It's cute. But you don't live once. You don't have one body. You live once. And that once is forever. So that's a YOLO for you. You exist forever. And what we are doing, multiple lives. And see, if we didn't have death and amnesia and different settings, we'd just be scatterbrained. It wouldn't work. So we have to go through incarnations and amnesias to slowly do step by step and rise the levels. Because to just have it, we would have no reason to leave God if we just stayed there all the time. So the universe is as it is, and it is perfect. Even when we suffer, it is somehow perfect. But we don't enjoy it. I'm not saying, oh, it doesn't matter if something, Yeah, it matters. It's very real. But it's to remind ourselves of the purpose. So what the phoenix does, to use the word, everybody knows what the phoenix is, right? The sacred bird of fire that is reborn from its own ashes. Everybody should probably be familiar with that. So this is a matter of becoming a phoenix in your heart, or use whatever term or way you want, and then keeping the hope, vision, the life. Because whether you totally killed yourself, there's no God, everything sucks, you live once, you die, and that's it. Even if you're that person or you know someone like that, hey, we've all known people like that. The fact is, when they die, and they will see by automatic default, oh, I didn't die, here I am. Automatic default. It's not a challenge or a promise, it's a reality. You can doubt. That's why it doesn't bother me if someone's an atheist. I don't, you see people, religious people arguing atheists, and then everybody's getting all hyper and upset. To me, it doesn't bother me. Let there be thousands and millions of atheists. It doesn't bother me at all, personally. Because when they die, and they will see that that is not true. You will continue. There are many layers of life and death. So, I don't even argue a thing. I say, fine, you'll see for yourself. As plain as day, as sure as night. Life and death is real and continuous. But you only live once, existing forever. Absolutely. A final thought from the Druids again was to examine nature and see the cycles, especially when looking at trees. Especially if you live in an area that has trees that go through the seasons, and I'm sure you do probably. And you'll see, right, springtime, summertime, fall, and winter. And this itself is showing the cycle of life and rebirth, even though it was only one tree going through the processes. So in a similar manner, the soul is exactly like that, going through processes. But a tree that's big and strong lived for a long time, and now I said, now when I die as this, now I really ascend into something. I don't have to go back through the cycles of spring, summer, fall again. I'm using a funny analogy, but there you have it. So, those are my thoughts. I just want to recommend to people to be a phoenix, to not be afraid of anything as much as possible, to understand everything is as it should be, and to be calm and happy in yourself, and to accept your death, the death that your body will have, and to accept the many deaths ongoing of putting your pride, your vanity, this and that aside, even as I must continue to do as well. Put it aside, put it behind, bit by bit, become more and more perfect. You are a piece of art. Are you painting yourself well? Are you chiseling yourself nicely? Ask yourself that. Are you beating yourself up too much? What layers of life are you allowing? Allow for some death so that new life may come. Keep the life that you already had, the wisdom. Keep it proud in your heart and clear in your mind, and let it increase. I don't mean pride in a bad way, but you know what I mean. Inwardly, knowingly, even just as self. Yes, good. And then we'll have a beautiful existence and a cognizance of the reality. That's my message for the day. I wish you truly well. And to prepare yourself for the death that you are going to have, your body will die. To prepare yourself for that, and not to be afraid of that, or to accept the deaths of those around you, is to say, it's not the end of anything, and it's a good thing. It leads to the next step, that much closer, precious increment by increment, that much closer back to the divinity. The real heaven is full heaven in the heart and in the mind, and that eventually comes. That is potentially available for everybody, and we can take it as much as possible in the now, if we can try, we can dare to do it. Soul increase. That's the main job, no matter what job you have. Make the main job, because it's what the main job is anyway, whether we know it or not. Yes, soul increase development, soul evolution, and then everything else gets toned differently. We have more control over things, because inwardly we feel like the phoenix. We have more life vibrancy, less worship of death, less death cult, less agreeing with the death cult. There you have it. Peace be with you, my friend. Catch you on the flip side.